You're listening to the Nourish CEO podcast, and this is my brand new series on the 4 CEO types: how to build a business that fits who you actually are. This is one of 4 episodes that deep dive into each CEO type to help you understand your wiring, leverage your strengths, avoid your blind spots, and build a business that works with your true nature instead of against it. Here's the reality of the business coaching landscape right now. Almost everything you see is built for one of 2 types of operators. One is the bold, fast moving, decisive person who can make a call and execute without looking back. And the second is the highly relational, magnetic personality who can grow a massive audience just on the strength of who they are and convert it through sheer warmth and connection. Now, if you're one of those 2 types, a lot of the advice out there probably will work reasonably well for you. But here's what no one's talking about. Those are not the only 2 ways to lead a business. Even more than that, the current obsession with hype-first marketing, meaning build a big audience, go viral, be everywhere all at once, perform your personality at scale, dangle the carrot in front of people, and don't worry about actually delivering anything on the back end, all of that is actively working against a huge portion of experts who are genuinely excellent at what they do, but they're not wired to build a business that way, and they really don't want to. So if you're more methodical, if you lead through depth and rigor rather than speed and charisma, if you build trust slowly, but your clients stay for years because you build that trust, the mainstream advice wasn't built for you. And trying to implement it anyway is probably costing you way more than just time and energy in your business. Now, this is what this series is designed to fix. The 4 CEO types framework will map your natural leadership style, how you decide, how you build trust, how you sell, and even how you deliver your programs, and helps you build your business strategy around that. It's not as a workaround for not being the right type of CEO. It's building your business with your genuine competitive advantages at the forefront. Now, if you haven't taken the CEO type quiz yet, it's linked in the show notes, or you can go to lauraschoenfeld.com/quiz. And I recommend that you take it before you listen to these series episodes or take it after. Either works, but I want to make sure that you know exactly the type that is most aligned for you. And if you're already in the middle of the series, welcome back. Let's get into it. We're on part 2 of the 4-part series, the 4 CEO types: how to build a business that fits who you actually are. And today we're covering the relational CEO, and I want to start by saying this. If this is your type, your likability is not the problem. Tell me if this sounds familiar. People light up when they talk to you. You build trust faster than almost anyone you know. Your clients don't just get results, they genuinely feel seen and cared for. You're the person that people reach out to when they need support, and honestly, you love that about yourself. But behind the scenes, you're probably exhausted. Not because you're doing work that you hate, you actually love the work, but because you're giving so much of yourself to so many people that there's nothing left for you at the end of the day. And somewhere along the way, someone probably just told you that you just need to set better boundaries or stop being so available. And maybe you've tried that, but it feels like putting up walls, and that's just not who you are. Today, I'm going to show you why your warmth is a genuine gift and how to stop letting your relatability drain you without becoming someone that you're not. So let's dig in first to what makes a relational CEO. Now, you might have already listened to maybe the decisive CEO conversation. Maybe you've listened to some other ones as well. And you might be wondering, okay, what makes somebody specifically a relational CEO? And the 2 biggest things that are going to make somebody this type of business owner is that they are people-oriented and fast-paced. So that means that they are much more concerned about people and people's experiences and relationships than they are about just getting things done. And they're also fast movers. So they make decisions quickly, they adopt new trends quickly, they're trying things, they're very experimental. They're not afraid to put themselves out there and be the first one to do something. And so they are very go, go, go. And it's all about making friends and influencing people. Relational CEOs show up in their business in a few different ways. First of all, they are the type that builds trust quickly and naturally. So, whenever I think about the clients that I work with who fall under this relational CEO category, I always notice that they're the ones whose social media, Instagram, TikTok, whatever they're doing to show up and actually connect with people, their accounts just blow up like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of followers. And it almost feels like natural for them, right? Like I know a lot of people are very timid around social media or they hate it or it feels like this total drag to show up. My clients who are the relational CEOs actually love it and it's mostly very easy for them. They're great at making people feel genuinely seen. So, whether that is in a sales conversation or as a client, the people that they work with just open up to them quickly. They feel very comfortable, and all of that can make a really nice experience for the people that they're working with. They also create spaces where clients feel safe to transform. So they're great at creating a supportive community. They're really great at motivating and cheerleading people, which for a lot of people, that is so valuable. Like just having someone that is in your corner to back you and to be like, yes, I believe in you. You can do this. That is what the relational CEO is amazing at. And I'm saying this as somebody who, as a decisive CEO, that is not my strong suit. So I'm very much in admiration of the people who can do that naturally. Now, they're also energized by connection and collaboration. So they're the kind of people who really love group programs. They love participating in summits or doing interviews or doing like a Instagram live with people. And that is something that really lights them up. They also love live events and being in the room with people and just having this energy that is driven by that extroversion, driven by the desire to be in relationship with people. And they're the kind of person who will like hang out at the party until the lights turn on, right? So they love being in connection, community, collaboration, anything that they can do to be part of a community is going to really light them up. They're also natural networkers and referral generators. So, one of the things that can be really nice about being a relational CEO is that some of the best ways to grow your business with long term clients without having to market yourself super hard, you do that naturally. So, having a great experience with your clients and then them referring people because, oh my gosh, you got to work with so and so. She's amazing. Meeting other colleagues and just sparking this immediate connection with people and having people think of you when they think, oh, I need somebody to send people to. Well, let me send them to so and so because I really connected with that person when we met. So, those networking experiences, referrals, all that stuff is a great way for you to grow your business. And it's very natural for you. It doesn't even feel like you're doing work when you're doing those kind of things. So going to conferences, going to live events, participating in panels, those kind of things are really awesome ways for you to grow your business that are very easy for you to show up and do and feel very aligned and very energized. Now, the reason why this is so valuable when it comes to growing your business is because unlike a lot of people who run businesses or even want to do things like social media or content creation, they have a really hard time creating that real connection with their audience. And they have to think about it. They have to really kind of muster it up to be able to do that. You just do it naturally. Like you almost don't even understand the concept of not being able to connect with people or looking at social media like, oh my gosh, I hate this so much. Not to say that you can't get there if it starts to feel like it's asking too much of you. But for most of you, when you started social media, it was very exciting and fun. It wasn't like, oh, I got to do this for my business. It was really just like, I'm here to be creative. I'm here to connect with people. And it just came very naturally to you. Which again is not a normal thing. A lot of entrepreneurs really have to force themselves to do that. I am someone who I like to create content. I like to be, sharing my wisdom and sharing my leadership. But in terms of building community on Instagram, it's not even something I'm thinking about, right? So that is something you do really well, and it can be amazing for your business, especially an online business. You also build audience loyalty that a lot of entrepreneurs only dream of. People will literally buy from you because it's you, even if they don't even know what you're selling. Now, this can be done in a pathological way. I've seen this done in the business coaching space where they're like, you're just buying proximity and you're paying to be in my energy and I'm not even going to tell you what the deliverables are. I don't think that that's an appropriate way to sell a service, but it is something that is like the extreme end of what a relational CEO is really good at, which is like people will just buy from them even if they're not explaining what they do that clearly, or, it's not super obvious what they're actually delivering. People just love them and want to be in their energy, and that in and of itself can create sales, which again is like a superpower. If you can just get people to spend money with you because they want to be around you, that's awesome. And that's really, really helpful for building a personal brand, because people will come with you from one niche to another, from one topic to another, and they're really there for you more than they're there for the individual topic that you are an expert about. Now, in addition to that, your clients who love working with you, they become your biggest advocates. So they just will shout your name from the mountaintops. They'll tell everyone about you. They'll tag you on social media. They're very excited to share your stuff because they know that when people come into your world, they're going to be cared for, they're going to be seen, and they're going to really have fun, which if you think about what people naturally like to share, they don't usually necessarily share a lot about the problems that they're dealing with. A lot of times if you work in a particular topic that's like people don't necessarily want to be sharing it publicly, they won't necessarily be promoting you as much because it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to tell people that I have IBSD, right? Or like, I don't know if I really want to tell people I have financial problems and that's why I'm working with this debt coach. So the things that you create naturally lead people to want to share because it's fun, it's exciting, it's community oriented, and it's something that feels really good to be able to talk about. And you don't feel like, oh, I gotta like tell somebody the secret about this person I'm working with. Like you are just somebody that people can very naturally pump up to the public, and they're excited to do so. It makes me think of like Taylor Swift, right? Like people who like Taylor Swift are very happy to talk about Taylor Swift. They're very happy to identify as a Taylor Swift fan. They got the friendship bracelets, like anything she's doing. They're wearing like the tassel dress to the concert. I don't know if she would, if that's her actual personality type. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. But she's like, when I think about somebody who is really, just leading through personality and energy and vibes, like that's somebody who comes to mind. Now, in addition to this, from a sales perspective, word of mouth sales flow really well to you and very naturally. And you don't even have to ask people. Like I'm constantly seeing clients say, well, how do I get more referrals? How do I get more word of mouth? And if you're the relational CEO, you're like, what are you talking about? People just recommend me to their friends, right? So it may feel very strange to think that word of mouth would need any sort of strategy around it because your people just do it naturally and it's like it just happens. Honestly, a lot of the stuff I think for the relational CEO is one of those like, I don't know how I did it, but I just did it, right? Like that's the way that you approach a lot of stuff in your business is it's like very intuitive. It's very feeling based. It's like, I just feel like this is the right way to go. And you move quickly and it's like, let's have fun with this. So it's a very excited and energized approach to business that doesn't usually fall into like overthinking or analysis paralysis. Like you're just like, let's go, let's do it, let's have fun. So I do think that connection as a business strategy can benefit everybody. And I think we can all really learn from the relational CEO. I know for me personally, as a primary decisive CEO, I actually have the secondary trait of the relational CEO. So I'm like a more people-oriented decisive CEO, if that makes sense. But I know for me, like being able to create that community experience, that connection, that, sense of, just connection inside of a program or doing things that my clients are like, oh, that was really nice that you thought of me. To me, that doesn't come naturally. Like, yes, I want people to feel that way, but it's not like how my brain works to be so easily thinking of ideas like that. Whereas someone who's a relational CEO at the forefront, they're like, that's just what they do. They send gifts to their clients. They make these like beautiful events if they're running live events. They just are, again, the life of the party and people love to be around them. And, everything in their business is about let's have fun. Let's make this positive. Even if you're solving a problem, like I'll talk a little bit about a client of mine who is definitely the relational CEO type. She works with clients with PCOS. PCOS is not typically something you think about as being like fun, but as you'll see from her interview, she approaches things in a way that make it more fun, make it more entertaining, make it more personality driven. And even the content she's putting out there as an expert is still about making PCOS something that's empowering instead of something that is, a health condition somebody should be ashamed about. So turning problems into opportunities for growth, for empowerment, like that is what relational CEOs do really well. So when it comes to making money, again, I think the relational CEO is probably one of the best money-making types, like just naturally, because there's so much stuff that, at least in our world today, really benefits from the skill sets that relational CEOs have. But first of all, that trust piece, building trust, building that connection with your audience that makes you sales without needing to use pushy tactics, without needing to, nurture people for months and months and months. You're the kind of person that, again, people will buy stuff from you just because it's you. And that is a huge asset in the online business space and one that can make you a ton of money. Another moneymaker for the relational CEO is creating client experiences that generate referrals. So this is something you do naturally, but even if you can reinforce that to say, okay, the customer or client experience is something that will actually ripple into the rest of my business because I'm going to create this container that more people want to be in and they're going to tell their friends about it. So being able to really emphasize the parts of you that already do that naturally and putting some systems in place and making sure that even as you scale that relational experience scales with you, that is something that will help you make more money through referrals and lifetime customer value. Another thing you do great that will make you a lot of money is collaborating and partnering with other business owners. So I love personally sharing platforms with people. My platforms, having guest experts on, as well as being an interviewee or a guest expert on somebody else's platform. And that's something that a relational CEO is just stellar at, right? Like they're amazing at it. It's so easy for them to do those things. And they bring really great energy to those collaborations. And so it makes it an easy yes for other business owners to invite you to participate. And so getting in front of other people's audiences organically is actually one of the best ways to grow your visibility without having to do a lot of work and without having to spend a lot of money or any money at all, really. And so things like being a guest expert for a program or going on somebody's podcast or going on a TV interview or being a speaker at an event, like all of that stuff is gold for you because you're great at it. And it's something that allows you to grow your audience very fast. And all you have to do is show up and be yourself. I already mentioned this, but another moneymaker is word of mouth referrals. So again, maybe this is like not a thing you even think about, but getting people talking about what you're doing and sharing with their friends is one of the best ways for you to make money. And it probably feels very easy for you. So we just want to look at that as part of your strategy. And it's something that not everybody's going to be thinking about, not everyone's going to be doing. And even the business coaches you hire may not even talk about that because maybe that's not their skill set, right? Like I wouldn't say that's something that is my direct skill set where people are just naturally telling their friends about me. I mean, I do have a good reputation and I try to create those type of experiences, but it's not something that's just like going without me, right? Like I need to be intentional about that stuff for it to actually have that ripple effect. Whereas for you, the relational CEO, it's just like you don't even think about it because it just happens. And I think if you think more about it and really think about how to amplify that, it can blow up your business. You also have probably the best lifetime customer value of any of the CEOs. So that means people stay with you for a long time. They'll pay you just because they're enjoying themselves. They have that genuine relationship and connection, even if it's a bigger container. Like they don't need to be your best friend for them to feel connected to you because you just radiate that, right? So the people that come into your world, they stay longer, they stick around even if they've already solved the problem that they originally came in for, just because they enjoy being in your presence, they enjoy being in your world. So that is a huge moneymaker. If you can get people to stick around and keep paying you without a lot of effort and without a lot of convincing or any convincing at all, that is huge. And ultimately, people who are going to spend more money, especially in 2026 and beyond, the people that are spending a lot of money to work with a coach or an expert, they want to feel connected to who they're working with. So it's not just about who's the smartest. It's not just about who has the best framework. It's not just about who is the most credentialed or the most famous. It's like, I want to feel that emotional resonance and that values connection with somebody I'm going to spend a lot of money with. And that is something that you do very naturally, where you create that feeling of connection and that warmth and that intimacy that a lot of people don't naturally create. And so that can actually attract high-paying clients to you much faster than somebody who is much more intellectual about things and really thinking about their frameworks as opposed to who they are as a person. Now, just like every other of the 4 CEO types, you have blind spots too as a relational CEO. And a lot of times it's the same things that make you really successful. So I mentioned before that you are great at growing an audience, about getting eyeballs on you, about, just like I said, if you're a relational CEO, these are my clients who their Instagram is like, 50,000, 500,000, a million followers. And that's really natural for them to create that kind of momentum in community and audience. However, sometimes, even with a huge audience like that, you can struggle to make sales because you're attracting people who aren't looking to spend money. They just like your energy. They're not actually dealing with the problem you have. They just are like, oh, she's cool, I'm going to follow her, right? Like they're not somebody who's like actively seeking a solution to a problem that they want to pay for. They just like your vibe and they're going to follow you, right? So a lot of times that huge audience isn't necessarily an audience full of buyers. And that can be frustrating because you think, oh, I have, 50,000 followers. Why am I not making more sales? But it's because a lot of those followers are not actually looking to pay for a solution. Another issue you run into is that you struggle with pricing and probably have an issue with raising prices the way that you should when you're ready to, or you just like blow past any sort of, logical pricing decisions and you just like feel like, oh, I'm going to price this. And you don't necessarily have a clear understanding of why you're pricing it the way that you are. So that's usually the two directions I see with my relational clients is it's like either things are too cheap because they're like, I just want to help everybody, or they kind of swing in the other direction because some business coach was like, charge what you're worth. And the relational CEOs are like, well, I'm worth a lot, so I'm going to charge a lot. And they're not necessarily backing that pricing up with clarity on what the person is paying for. Now, some people will pay for that, right? Like I said before, some people will literally just pay you because they like you, and that's awesome. But it's not everybody, and it's probably not most people that are just going to spend money because they like someone. So that can run into issues for you when you have a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, I would love to work with you. You're amazing. This looks so great. And then they see your price and they're like, oh, never mind. And then they bail, right? So if that sounds familiar, it's probably just because I've seen it so much with my relational CEO clients. Now, you might also struggle with over delivering. So you always want everyone to be happy, to get what they came for, to just be serving people. So what that can end up looking like is you add extra calls, you let sessions go over time all the time. If you're using things like Voxer to communicate with clients, like you'll just like respond to a 10-minute voice memo with another 10-minute voice memo. And it's not because you're lacking confidence or that you feel obligated to. A lot of times it's just like you just really love communicating and you love relating with people and you want them to have the best possible experience. But what that creates is this complete lack of integrity around any sort of container or boundaries. So you end up blurring those boundaries because, especially if you've delivered it and then now you're trying to walk back and kind of like put the toothpaste back in the tube. that feels like you're rejecting someone or you're punishing someone, and that can feel really bad for you because you care about people. And so you get that scope creep, you get that boundary blurring, and maybe it doesn't feel that big of a deal earlier on in your business, but the more you grow, the more that starts to become really, really exhausting. And like I said, because you feel like, I don't want to be mean and take this away from someone, you just keep giving it and just, make it so that you're the one that suffers, which for better or worse, that's your tendency as a relational CEO to put other people's needs above yours. Now, another thing that can show up, which might be a little bit more subtle, is you get these people that'll sign up for your services and they'll show up, they'll come to calls, they'll tell you how much they love what you're doing, that, oh my gosh, this program is amazing. But then when you actually look at what they're doing inside the program and the kind of results they're getting, they're not doing any of the work. They're just hanging out, right? So that's not everybody, but that is something that can happen when you're somebody who creates this really energetically enjoyable container, is that people will just come in and hang out and be like, I'm just here for the party, right? Versus when you're a coach or an expert who wants to deliver a transformation for people, you know that there's work they have to do, right? And so they come in and they're just like hanging out, having a good time, but they're not doing the work. It's like, okay, this is great. I'm glad you're happy, but you're not getting any results. And if you're somebody who cares about your clients' results, which I'm sure most of you, if not all of you do, it can feel a little frustrating because it's like, hey, we're not just here to chit chat. We're here to make some change, right? And so that can be something that, again, it's nice. You don't tend to have a lot of unhappy clients, but you might have some complacent clients that come in because they're not actually really there to get things done or to take action. They're just like, I just love being here. So the reason why this happens is because your warmth and your connection and your relatability doesn't have a strong container. It spills everywhere. It's like just, love everywhere, which is awesome. Nothing wrong with that. But in a business, it can be a little bit tough to have a profitable, sustainable, scalable business if you don't have any sort of boundaries around who gets what and how much of you they get. It's also really easy for you to confuse being responsive with being of service. So if somebody sends you a client message portal or portal message, let's say it's a Voxer, right? They send you a Voxer at like 9:00 at night. And normally, if you had some boundaries, you would say, I'm going to answer that tomorrow. But instead, you're sending them a 5-minute voice memo at 9:00 at night instead of, getting ready for bed or doing something that's for you, right? So it's not that you're doing it to be a people pleaser necessarily, but you just have this feeling that, oh my gosh, I want to get back to someone. I want to be responsive. I want to serve them. And it ends up totally blowing past your boundaries. And again, if you're newer to business or you don't have that many clients, you might be able to get away with that and it's okay. But as you continue to grow, that is something that you literally can't continue because there's only so much of you to go around. So what happens is you get into this cycle of exhaustion because you're giving so much that there's really not a whole lot left. And you start to get burnt out on work you actually love. So whether it's content creation, whether it's building community, whether it's working with clients, whether it's leading group calls, it's like you technically, when you think about it, you're like, I really like all of that. So why am I so tired? Why am I so burnt out? Why do I feel like I'm starting to resent this business? And it's confusing because you're like, I like these people. I like this program. I like content creation. Why do I feel so resentful towards these things that I like or clients that I care about or people that I actually love working with? And that can feel really disorienting because it's like you probably got into this business and you probably got the success you have because you loved everything. And if you start to feel like you're not loving things anymore, it can start to feel like maybe I need to change something. Maybe I need to burn it down. Maybe I need to just quit and, be a stay-at-home mom or whatever it is, right? Like whatever your version of avoiding burnout looks like, rather than looking at, okay, how do I fix the things that are causing the burnout so that I can keep doing the things that I love and not start to resent them. And a lot of times when like a therapist or a well-meaning coach will tell you, you just need better boundaries. People like you, the relational CEO, feel like boundaries are the opposite of how they want to show up. It feels like you're putting up walls. It feels like you're shutting people out. And that doesn't mean that the concept of boundaries is equivalent to shutting people out, but that's how it can feel like, right? And so if you feel like, oh man, I'm starting to resent this business, but I don't want to stop showing up for my audience. I don't want to just disappear. I don't want to like ignore the people that I'm working with. That then creates this kind of like catch-22, right? Where you continue leaking out your energy over everybody and you have nothing left for yourself at the end of the day. So with the Relational CEO, the big shift that you're going to want to make to help you make your business sustainable and profitable for the long haul is to put in structure that actually protects your warmth and your focus on connection. Structure is not the opposite of warmth. So having boundaries, having container guidelines, just anything that's like holding the space and people can see, okay, this is not okay, this is the rule, this is the policy. That does not have to be something that is the opposite of being kind, being supportive, being friendly, being loving. In fact, for a lot of people, boundaries are actually something that is kind. I know Brene Brown always says, clear is kind, right? And so you're somebody who wants to be kind to people. You need to have boundaries in order to protect that kindness and not let it turn into resentment. So it's kind of like a candle. So imagine that you're a candle and you have this flame that is your warmth, your, energy, your excitement, the things that draw people to you. If you just put a candle on a table with no holder, the wax is going to melt everywhere. You could set the table on fire. Like there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with an uncontained candle, right? So that's why we use candle holders, whether it's a glass jar, whether it is a, ceramic plate, whether it is a candlestick, like there's something to contain that candle so that the warmth and the flame and the fire and the energy is doing what it's meant to do, which is creating light, creating warmth, creating heat, being helpful, because we all like to have our, if you want to read at night, you need some light. If you want to see where you're going, you need the light, right? So there's a lot of value to that fire on the candle, but we need it contained because otherwise it can cause a lot of problems if it's just allowed to just go anywhere. So you can still be warm inside your container. You can still be a light. You can still, be fiery, whatever that personality looks like. But you just stop letting the container expand infinitely and have no walls or boundaries. So let's talk about what this looks like in practice, because I know it's really easy to say set boundaries or create a container, and then you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? For your offers, this means creating clear containers with a defined scope. So defined scope means that you are very clear, especially in some sort of terms and conditions or contract, you're clear about what they're getting and what you are agreeing to and what your policies are. And the person that you're working with knows what they're getting. So if you have, promises on Voxer, instead of just being like, oh, you have unlimited Voxer access, and now they think they can, get a response Sunday at 10 p.m., you say unlimited Voxer access, and my hours to respond are between, 9 and 4 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. And I promise to respond within 2 business days, right? So like that's what you're promising. And it's a very clear boundary around what the deliverable is. That doesn't mean that you have to hold yourself to that, right? Like if you want to answer outside of those boundaries, you can. Nobody's going to give you a fine or something. And then I've even had clients before who were like, oh, I'll make sure I don't message you outside of those working hours. I'm like, dude, you can message me whenever you want. Like I can be responsible for my own boundaries. And if I want to answer, I will. If I don't, I will wait until I'm technically working, right? So it's like, you don't have to be rude. You don't have to make people feel uncomfortable. You don't have to be like, oh, I can't believe you Voxered me outside of my hours. Like it's just saying, listen, this is a part of how I'm serving you. This is my boundary around what to expect. And then that way, If somebody is like, hey, I Voxered you 3 hours ago. Why haven't you gotten back to me? You can go back to your policy to say, actually, I promised that I would be responding to Voxers within 2 business days. So given that it's been 3 hours, I didn't have a chance to see this message, right? And, I can share that because that's happened to me before, right? Where I have a client who, they were borderlining abusing the Voxer privileges. And it wasn't just that they were sending a lot of messages. It was like literally they would send a message and then a couple hours later be like, why haven't you answered this yet? And it's like, okay, that's not what we agreed to, but let me remind you of what the policy is. So that's why you have to have the policies in the first place, because it can feel very affronting if you get mad at somebody because they're doing something that you don't like, but you never ever told them what to expect, right? And I'm not saying you would get mad, but you might get resentful, you might get frustrated, or you might feel like, oh, I have to answer because I told them they had unlimited Voxer access. So now I have to answer them after they Voxered me an hour ago, right? So having those guidelines and that structure that is very clear and defined in your offer, and you're not just doing whatever people want you to do, you've defined your scope and you're like, hey, if that's not within my scope, I can refer you out. We can add on some extra support that's paid for. But it's a lot easier to do that when you've been clear about things than if you're just kind of loosey-goosey about what you're actually selling. When it comes to your messaging, the hard part is the way that you approach messaging can grow your audience, right? So like I said, you are very, very good at growing a large audience. And you have the unfortunate downside of attracting a lot of people that are never going to work with you. They don't have any intention to pay you. They might even be the kind of people that really latch into the parasocial relationship and they just want access to you. They're the ones that get mad if you don't answer their DMs or if you tell them to pay you if they want to get your insight on something. So obviously there's benefits to having a big audience, but the dark side is you get a lot of people that are just not a good fit, right? So in your messaging, what you can do is start to do more filtration and really be clear about who you're not for as much as you're clear about who you're for. Because you don't just want anybody and everybody coming into your business. I'm not saying that you have to be discriminatory. I hope you wouldn't be, but you can be very clear about who your services are for, who is a best fit for what you offer. And that's not mean. It's actually very kind so that people know if it's something that they would be interested in paying for. If it's not a fit, then they can put their money elsewhere. They can work with somebody else. There's plenty of other people that they could work with. They don't need to specifically work with you. So using your messaging to be a little polarizing, to be like, this is what I stand for, this is what I don't stand for, versus just creating content that attracts everybody within the category that you create the content for is something that can help you have more structure within the business and not just be available for everybody. During your sales process, one of the things I notice with a lot of the relational CEOs that I work with is they are very not touchy-feely. It's touch and go, I guess, with their sales conversations where they'll just be like, all right, let me know, if you have any questions. And they're very gentle and they're very open-ended. And I think the reason why they run into this and why you might run into this is because you are a fast action taker and you're very if I know I want something, I'll go after it because you make decisions quickly. But what can happen is when you're talking to people that don't make as quick decisions and don't have that oh, I just knew I wanted it, so I went after it kind of feeling, when you don't create clear decision-making action steps for the people that you're talking to, and you just leave it open-ended and they're just yeah, just let me know, let me know if you want to do this, email me back, that usually is what leads to people ghosting you, to people, taking a really long time to buy when they didn't really need to take that long. I mean, honestly, the ghosting thing's probably the most common. And I know as a relational CEO, you probably hate ghosting because you're I would never do that to somebody. I would never just talk to them and then just disappear and not respond. And it can be very frustrating, right? So it's on you to create that decision container and a little bit of decision pressure, and not just say, just let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to work together. It's literally saying, hey, if you're ready to do this, here's your next step. And honestly, people need that. They need somebody to hold them accountable to their transformation, and you giving them some level of firm guidelines or deadlines or next steps that they should do if they want to work with you is actually part of how you're helping to facilitate the transformation. And then with your delivery, holding the structure instead of constantly expanding it. So not just creating things because people are asking for it, not just adding more content because somebody was like, oh, that would be interesting, right? It is very possible to over deliver in terms of the volume of information, the volume of content, the volume of tools, the volume of resources within a program. And too much can be just as harmful as not enough for people when it comes to them getting results. So being more clear about what's actually necessary for your client to get a result versus just throwing stuff in because you're like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And you're just adding more because you're kind of like a more is more type of person. Just, it doesn't have to mean that you're restricting yourself and being really stingy. It just means being intentional around what you're putting in. And then finally, with your calendar, making sure that there is space to do more structure building in the business. Since you're somebody who can move fast and tends to be more emotionally driven than logically driven, a lot of times you're just kind of like flying by the seat of your pants in your business, and you don't actually set up time in your calendar to assess what's working, to create, SOPs or processes for your team. You're not systematizing things. You're not building assets for the business. You're just like showing up and doing the thing, right? And so making sure there's time in your calendar that is protected to actually do more of the structure building and analysis in your business. It doesn't mean it has to be like half your job, even if it's just a couple hours a week, to make sure that you're not just like flying blind and flying based on feelings, that you actually have some data you can look at, that you actually have some projects that are being built so that your energy is not the engine of the business, that your business can keep running even if you take a week off Instagram, that, other people can sell for you if you don't want to be the one selling all the time. And so that's really important with your calendar to make sure you're leaving space for that. And not just leaving space, like actually intentionally creating space. So what this allows you to do is you attract more aligned clients instead of just fans. You stop feeling so drained by having no boundaries and just like giving people whatever they want whenever they want it. You have the time in your business set aside to do more of the structure building so you can start to build systems that replace your energy as the primary driver of the business. And what this creates is that you actually get to bring energy back into your own life, right? Instead of all your energy getting leaked out in your business and then you have nothing left afterwards, this allows you to reserve energy for the things in your own life that matter. So whether that's self-care, whether that's working out, whether that's time with your kids, whether that is going out with your girlfriends, like whatever it is, there's other things that you like to do than just run a business. You need to make sure that your business is not draining the life out of you so that everybody else who you actually probably care about more than your audience, right? Like I'd hope your spouse, your kids, your friends, your family, you care more about the relationships with them than you care about some random person DMing you on Instagram, right? So by creating these structures, boundaries, containers, it makes sure that you're protecting your energy for the relationships in your real life that matter more than the relationships in your business. And I can say that as somebody who, again, I lean relational as a decisive CEO. And I know that for me, my kids, my husband, my community in real life, my friends, like that is not something I'm willing to sacrifice just to make more money in my business. And for you, it usually isn't that you're just trying to make more money. It's that you are just overcommitted to people and you feel bad about, setting those boundaries and saying no. But ultimately, I would love for you to be able to avoid the burnout experience of not having any sort of boundaries around your time and energy. So with your game plan, if you go to your results page after the quiz, essentially what you're going to be looking at is the core areas of your business. So that's your offers, your sales strategy, your messaging, and then your schedule. So you're going to create clear containers within your offers. You're going to be very specific around what you do, what you don't do. Yes, you can create that warmth, that community, that good experience, but there is structure. In your messaging, you're going to get more specific about who you're for and who you're not for, instead of just being like, everybody's coming to the party. In your sales process, you're going to be stepping into more of a leadership role than a, friendly, like, let me know if you want this kind of role, and really giving them clear guidelines about how to move forward. In your delivery, you're going to make sure that the structure that you've created is what's designed to facilitate the transformation, not just how much of you they get. And then in your schedule, making sure you're protecting space, not only for the structure creation process as the CEO, but for yourself and for the people you care about, and not just your clients and your audience. So I mentioned when we first started this conversation that I have a client who's like a perfect example of a very successful relational CEO. Her name is Corey Ruth. She is a dietitian that serves women with PCOS and just in general women's health. Her business is called The Women's Dietitian. And at the time of this recording, she's got just about 680,000 followers on Instagram as a dietitian. So pretty impressive, right? I mean, I can't even imagine. That's like, I don't know, is it 30 times what I have? I don't even know what the math is on that. So she's heading towards 1 million followers, and she is so good at social media, building an audience, building that connection with people. And one of the things that we talked about in her interview is how that translated to her book deal. So being able to write a book, and her book is called PCOS is My Power. So again, this idea that like, yes, it's a health condition that can be somewhat negative for people, but being that relational CEO, she actually turned it into something that's positive and made it more exciting and fun and enjoyable to be working on healing your PCOS, as opposed to just this like health condition that you have. So her ability to grow that audience, her ability to make something like PCOS more enjoyable to talk about, all of that is something that has absolutely exploded her business. And she's someone that really had to embrace that part of her, because as a dietitian, a lot of what was influencing her was this belief that she had to be more professional, to be seen as an expert, to be trusted. And she was able to really build that expertise, that authority, that trust without toning down her personality. So she's owning both her warmth and her authority. And that is what has led her to have this, huge Instagram account, this legitimate published book deal. She's got a multi-6-figure business. She sells out her programs. She's got one-on-one clients in her practice. Like, there's so many things she's doing, and it's all based on her personality as a relational CEO, not in spite of her personality. So we will link to the show notes, or in the show notes, I'll link to this episode if you want to listen to her interview. But she's a great example of someone who has done business very well as a relational CEO. So I hope that this was interesting and fun for you to listen to as a relational CEO. I know sometimes it's like, doing things to learn about your business can sometimes feel a little like, oh, I don't want to do this. I just want to like go have fun. You're the person who's like jumping on the trends, doing the fun reels, like all the stuff that a lot of us are like, oh, I don't want to keep up with that. Like, you're the one who enjoys it. So I hope that our conversation today can ground you a little bit in some of the things that will protect you, protect your energy, protect the things that matter to you, while still allowing you to blow up your business with the personality that you have. So as a reminder, your warmth and your friendliness and your likability is a gift. It's not a liability. And the work that you want to be focusing on is building containers that protect that warmth so that it's sustainable and that it's benefiting everybody and not just burning your house down. So if this resonated with you and you haven't taken the CEO quiz yet, you absolutely can. If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know if this really sounds like me, then definitely take the CEO type quiz, because it's probably not this is probably not your type. There's 3 other types that you could possibly be. But if you are a relational CEO, then go check out the results page because that'll give you your full game plan. And since you're the networker, the friend maker, the community person, I would love for you to share this with people that you know that also might be a relational CEO or just any type of CEO. Because ultimately, the goal with this series, the goal with this quiz is to help people really identify their strengths as well as their blind spots so that their business can be structured in a way that helps them grow in an aligned way while also shoring up the parts of the business that maybe fall by the wayside because it's not their natural strength. So I hope that you found this valuable and useful, and I'm really glad that you're here with me on this episode today. I'll look forward to seeing you here next time on the Nurse CEO podcast. Take care, everybody.